And over here is, I don't know that we've done live stream on Facebook with you before, John, have we?
Neil, I'd have no idea because I don't know what the heck you're talking about.
All right. Um, let's see.
Internet has the fast, reliable speeds you're looking for. Get Cox 300 meg internet with a 2-year plan plus spot guarantee, plus equipment included.
Somebody want to mute that for me, please?
Price guarantee.
All right, let's go on this here and go back to here. Excellent. Okay. All right. John Har and I go way, way back. I call ourselves sister offices because about 30 years ago, we ended up in a mastermind group and have been masterminding ever since. Some of you have seen me or us, John and I, on Wednesday morning at 7 o'clock for, I don't know how long, John, long time.
Long time, yes.
Long time. But we talk about different things, different situations that are usually scripts and dialogues. Those are the things that we feel mean a lot to us and will mean a lot to you guys. But there's this cost segregation that John's talked to me a little bit about, and I wanted to share it with the group. I will tell you that sometimes this subject goes over my head. John promises to bring it back down, so even I'll understand it. Won't that be great, John?
Neil, I can't explain anything above the level of about a 10-year-old, so this will be very easy.
So this will be done. Okay, good. Are you saying I'm coaching and training a lot of 10-year-old? No. Except for maybe Brandon. Everybody else is above that. Yeah, I know, Brandon. I know. Got it. Well, I'm excited about this, and I appreciate your time. You're very, very busy. You run a very successful office in Utah. If you guys are ever looking for a mostly Salt Lake City, John?
We're in the Salt Lake City Valley. We go from Salt Lake down into the Utah County area, so we have a fairly good sized area that we work. I mean, it's for population, nowhere near what you guys have, but it keeps us plenty busy. There's a lot of business.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. Love it. So why don't you take it away, and we can talk more about this as we go.
Okay, thanks, Neil. So, probably about, gosh, I don't know, I would say 10 or 15 years ago, I was working with, I started working a little more, not exclusively, but a little more with investors and developers and that kind of thing because they seemed to fit my personality a little bit better. They had more money and they were easier for me to work with. And I was working with a developer one day, and we were working on a fairly large transaction for Utah. It was $3 or $4 million transaction. And he's very successful. And I was sitting in his office talking to him and putting the offers together. And I said to him, "What do you do regarding your income taxes?" And he said, "Well, what do you mean?" I said, "Well, I pay more than I want to in income tax." He says, "Well, I think probably everybody does." And I said, "Well, I know that you make a lot of money. What is your strategy?" And he said, "Well, everybody that I know, John, that makes a lot of money uses, cost segregation, bonus depreciation." He says, "Do you use that?" And I said, "Well, I have no idea what that is." And he says, "Well, he says it saves me hundreds of thousands of dollars every year on my taxes." And I said, "Well, that's what I'd like to know more about." And he said, "Well, you need to do a little bit of research and find out about it." He says, "It's something I don't understand the details really of it." He says, "But I have an accountant that has educated me on it." And he said, "I think that's something you ought to check into." So I called my accountant and I said, "I would like to learn a little more about cost segregation, bonus depreciation." And he said, "Well, I don't do that." And I thought it was kind of interesting because he was an accountant, and I was hoping that, he could help me a little bit because I was paying quite a bit more in taxes than I wanted to pay. And I said, "Well, why don't you do it?" He says, "I just don't do it." And I said, "All right." So I went back to the developer and I asked him about that, and he said, you need to find a different accountant. He says he's costing you hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So I, I talked to a different accountant, and he said, John, you're spending way more money in tax than you should spend on income tax. He says we can literally, because you've never done it, and you have quite a few properties, that we can literally wipe out all 100% of your income tax for the next several years. And I thought, wow, that's a big deal. My one accountant won't do it, and this guy's telling me he can wipe it all out. I had a father that was paying quite a bit of money in tax, and a brother that was paying quite a bit of money in tax, and so I suggested to them that we talk to this accountant. Now, this accountant is different than my other accountant. My other accountant I could call on the phone and talk to whenever I wanted, but this accountant, if I wanted to talk to him, he charged me $1,000 for 1 hour. And so I thought, well, I better spend the $1,000, and I did. And what it did was it erased my tax, my dad's tax, and my brother's tax. And they did it because it's called, I'm sorry, it says cost segregation and bonus depreciation is what it's called. That was a question that came up. And and what's happened is over the years, or the last 10 or 15 years, I've tried to explain it to agents. This is what the thing is that I find interesting about it is most accountants don't know it very well or don't do it at all, the majority. And when I first heard it, I thought, well, there must be something illegal here. It must be against the law. But it's not. It's a way for people that are in real estate to save money on their taxes. Now, if you have a real estate license, then you automatically qualify. If you don't have a real estate license, then you need to have three income producing properties that you manage. Okay, so I didn't think too much of that because I had a real estate license. But as I got into this, I thought, yeah, I know a lot of clients that could use this cost segregation bonus depreciation. And then the big thing is with the big beautiful bill, the depreciation went from 60% to 100% the first year. So I can depreciate 100% of these items that they depreciate. I can depreciate them all in 1 year. And so it's a big deal. There are some guidelines and rules, and I don't pretend to understand at the level that, say, an accountant would. I just needed to know that I could write off 100% depreciation on certain items in any income property that I owned. And so instead of the 27 and a half year or the 39 year or whatever the depreciation schedule was on certain items, I could take them from, say, a 15-year down to 1 year on certain items inside the home. But what they say is I need an engineer study of what are you going to depreciate and how much can you depreciate, how much can you wipe out. Well, I have clients that have eliminated hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in their taxes, and so it makes it pretty simple because when I talk to someone, I say, would you like to reduce your tax strategy? You have a strategy to reduce it. They go, no. And I said, have you heard about cost segregation, bonus depreciation? And almost all of them tell me no. And so I've been trying to explain this to my agents for quite a few years. And, it's not something that I think maybe everybody would do, but I think it would be really valuable if somebody said, why don't I study this a little bit or learn how to present it to somebody? So the we had an agent that came in kind of new, and he took off with it. He said, I love this. He says, are you sure this is legal? And I said, I know I had the same question when I started with it. I said, it didn't seem legal to me that you could write off everything like that and save literally hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax. And he said, well, I'm going to learn a little more about it. He says, and I said, well, what are you going to do? And he said, well, he says, the 700 hours of real estate activities I have to qualify for it qualifies me as an agent. But he says, I can do short-term rentals, get someone to buy a short-term rental, and I don't have to have any hours in real estate, none. So that kind of left it open to anybody buying short-term rentals or someone that wanted to buy rentals that was okay with buying multiple rentals and managing them. So he started, and I liked the idea, he started calling accountants And he'd have a list of accountants and he'd make a phone call. Would you be interested in adding anywhere from $3,000 to $6,000 or $7,000 per client that you're currently doing tax returns for? And of course, the accountants would say, well, yes, how do we do that? And he said, well, do you currently do cost segregation? Which almost all of them say no, which is really surprising, but I don't think it's really well known. And so he says, let me come out and talk to you about what we can do. He says, I can get someone to do the cost segregation study, the engineer study, for $2,500, but you can charge your client $3,500. So you'll make $1,000 just on the cost segregation study, and you won't have any time invested in it at all. He said, and then every time I sell a property to someone, you'll have to create a new LLC for them. And he says, and that will be anywhere from $1,200 to $1,500 per LLC. And he says most of these people to qualify are going to have to buy 3 properties. They could buy 1 or 2 if they're short-term rentals, but you could take a regular client. He says now once they've done this every year, that you're going to have to fill out the LLC for them on their tax return. So every year there's going to be additional income. And he says, well, so what's in it? What do I have to do? And he says, all you have to do is let your high income earners know that we'll have a class and I'll come present it to them. So the accountants, which he calls, they'll fill up a room with, say, anywhere from 15 to 20 people in the room. And he'll sit down and explain cost segregation to them. And the accountant still hasn't been doing it, as they still don't know it really well. But he will find people that are paying, several $100,000 or more in taxes. And when they see his system, they go, "Are you serious? Can I really eliminate almost all my tax or all of my tax?" And he says, "Of course you can." So he has it set up where he finds them the property. All they have to do is say, "I want to do this." And he has the properties all set up for them. He has everything set up. All they have to do is say they want to do it. What he does is he puts people in brand new properties, brand new build jobs. And so the people are coming into these brand new build jobs that we have, and they have a lot of money, but now they've got a brand new property with an HOA, so their out of pocket time is almost nothing. Once they get a good renter in there, they don't put hardly any time into it at all. So they can manage the 3 properties with very, very little time, but that qualifies them if they're going to buy long-term rentals. If they're buying short-term rentals, then it just has to be a short-term rental, and then they don't have to even have those 750 hours. So we've coached a lot back and forth. And he has all of his people do what he calls a full engineer study. He doesn't have to be, but he has that. There's also a software study that can be done, or they can do a mix of the two. The accountant, and he's found all these accountants that are very excited about it. So he has probably somewhere between 30 and 40 accountants right now that are filling up classes for him. And he just sits down and makes a presentation about, this is cost segregation. Here's how I can help you save taxes. Where he's gotten so busy. So the last 3 months of the year, and this is his first year in real estate. He only was there with us for 6 months. He'd been with 2 other companies and hadn't closed anything. And the last 3 months of the year, he closed 18 transactions, all cost segregation. He's so busy now with people that want to buy that he will only work himself with people that want to buy 3 properties or more a year. And so anyone that wants to buy under 3, he gives them to one of his buyer's agents and says, "Here, you go show them the brand new construction and you put them under contract." So he had a couple ideas. One is talk to accountants because they know who makes a lot of money. 2, he says, I want to start talking to people that are selling businesses, which is what his newest thing. In addition to the classes he's having, he's talking to people that are selling businesses, and they receive a 3, 4, 5, 6 million, $7 million payout on their business, and they have a huge tax bill. And these people are buying anywhere from 10 to 15 properties from him. So in one client, he's closing 10 to 15 properties with one client. The thing that's really good about it, Neil, I think, is that if you have a client and they do it 1 year, they're going to come back every year and do it again. So the repeat and referral business is high, really high. And now today we were coaching today, and he says, "What do you think about me making presentations to high producing real estate agents that don't want to learn this?" He says they can just tell me this is my client and I'll just send them a referral fee. And I said, I think that's a great idea. Let's try it. So right now he does things for accountants, and they share their high producers. He does people that are selling businesses, and now he's calling high producing real estate agents. We have one other agent in the company that is also presenting to summer salespeople. Summer salespeople that knock doors and sell alarms. There are some of those that are making anywhere from $500 to $1 million, and they're simply paying the tax bill. They have no strategy at all. So when you sit down and you explain to some 23 or 24-year-old kid that's making $1 million and spending 250 to 350,000 a year in tax, that you can erase a lot of that, if not all of it, it's a pretty easy sell. And so we go from what we're doing is, because we have a lot of new construction here, we can go introduce them to a builder, and they will just say, here's 10 properties, buy these 10. They all have HOAs, and we set them up with everything else. In fact, the one agent that's doing it, he actually even has a service where he fills them for the renters for them, so they don't have to do anything. And so they don't spend much time at all on them. The money is for him is pretty high, for the time that he's got in it. The thing that you said in your initial advertising of this class is become an expert, in something. There's these people that are using this. They can't go to their attorney. Their attorney doesn't know about it. They can't go to their banker. Their banker doesn't know about it. And the majority of the accountants don't know about it. Or if they do, they're not doing them. And so when we go to these classes and he presents this to people, what they say is, "You're kidding me. This is not legal." And this big, beautiful bill change made it even better than it used to be. And I don't know how long that'll last, but it's a law right now. It's supposed to stay in for a long, long time. But there's a lot of investors that are paying way, way less in tax, and my real estate agents receive 3% on every new deal they put together. And I think this agent, this first year in real estate, I think he'll exceed 600,000 or 700,000 in income this year. I think that's conservative. We were talking yesterday about two new people he just found, and both of them sold businesses, and they have anywhere from $4 to $7 million that they have to protect from tax. And so one of them has to buy 12 or 14 properties this year.
So, John, I bring this to the group because at times in life, there are things that sound too good to be true, and they're generally too good to be true.
Yes.
The thing that I'm encouraging and John's encouraging is you got to figure this out for yourself and make sure that you have all the legal parameters that are involved. So don't just start going out tomorrow and telling your clients, "Oh, you don't have to pay any taxes," and blah blah blah. So make sure that you are doing the homework on this. I know personally I'm going to spend a good amount of time on it because it would behoove me and make sure that this is good. But let's see what's happening. So anybody, Dave, you talked about this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if it's the cost segregation program, but I asked you about this.
Well, they called it component, but it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Component depreciation. I do have a quick question. We're not licensed CPAs, so I found that if you put it in the form of a question, ask your CPA about this, that helps. But when you do this seminar and you're disseminating this information, how do you, what kind of provisos, whatever you say, that indicates that you're not a CPA?
Well, that's a great question. To begin with, we don't give the class unless the CPAs are sitting in the class.
Oh, okay. All right. So it's
So
under their purview then. Yeah.
yeah, so they're actually sponsoring the class, and so we have a guest speaker, and he's going to talk about something that a lot of people aren't using. And then we don't get into any of that other than you can save money by this strategy. Here are some general parameters. We don't get too deep into it because, like you said, we're not licensed for that.
Hmm.
You need to talk to your accountant, but we've already had the conversation with the accountant. And the accountant saying, well, this is a big benefit to me. If you'll go out and find 3 or 4 properties for these people, I get to make a lot more money on their tax return. So
Sure.
they want to put the people together. They want to put them in a room. Even if you don't do that, even if you just go talk to people that are we do not give any tax advice because we are not tax advisors. We
Hmm.
just know a strategy where they could reduce their income. I have like I say, a brother that makes a lot of money, and his tax bill every year is 400,000 or 500,000 a year. And it's not unusual for him to buy anywhere from 4 to 7 properties from me a year, so that he can offset that tax. And he's very happy with it because he could either give it to the government or he could invest it. The thing that's interesting about it is it causes, of course, a lot of growth for them in their uh, in their real estate portfolio because they keep buying these properties. We're just selling right now single family homes, rentals, we say brand new ones, anywhere from say 450 to 550. And we have a pretty big supply of those. So it works out pretty easy for us. If they say they're interested and they talk to their accountant, we do not give them the advice on the how to do it or what needs to be done. We understand it because we've studied it, but we don't give them that advice. That has to go through their accountant.
That's great. Thank you very much.
You bet.
That was a great presentation too, by the way.
Oh, thank you. I hope you make some money using it. The thing about the investors is they're so excited about it because, like Neil says, it sounds too good to be true. And
Right.
that's what I thought when I saw it, and I said, this can't be real. But boy, I'll tell you, it's an easy sell when you talk to an investor. He says, you're kidding me. And I said, well, here's your account. He set up the class, talk to him. If you feel comfortable with it, we'll take the next steps. So we don't get involved in any of that.
Good
Excellent.
job. Josie, you have a question?
Started out. Hi, John.
Hi.
You started out saying that if you're not a real estate agent, you need 3 income producing properties, which is fine. As real estate agents, some of us have properties that are already paid off. Does that still benefit?
That's a great question. So, what happened to me was if you're completely depreciated on those properties, then no, it won't. I had properties that I hadn't done this with, but I had depreciated maybe for 3 or 4 years or something like that. Whatever's left, they'll go in and finish that up. And then if you don't need all the depreciation one year, you can hold it and carry it on to the next year. My father had a lot of properties, and he did not know this strategy and not use any of them. So he was able to completely eliminate his tax on his income, and his income was significant. So he would be several hundreds of thousands of dollars a year that he would have paid in tax. But because he had a lot of properties and he'd never used this strategy, they were able to implement what was left. But if you are completely depreciated out and you are paid off, it may not paid off doesn't matter. All of my dad's properties were cash. He paid cash for all of them, but he hadn't used all the depreciation, so they could accelerate what was left.
See.
I have a question, John.
Yes.
Are you finished, Josie? Are you done, Josie? Yeah.
Actually, so one of the first steps we have to find is an accountant that does this here
Yes.
in our area.
Yeah, and I think here's the thing is what I did not realize there were so many accounts that weren't involved in it or didn't do it. It shocked me because it's such a great tax strategy. But when I got involved in it and started looking further into it, I have other friends, like Neil that do well financially, and a
You
lot.
have other friends besides me?
Well, just one, Neil. Just one. You're not, but I don't like him near as much as I like you, Neil.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
But anyway, they told me they've been doing it for years, and it's the only way they could save, the hundreds of thousands of dollars. A lot of them, Neil, are Mike Ferry agents that you know, and I wasn't aware of it. But yes, the question, Josie, is you may end up calling. Like I said in the very beginning, my accountant wouldn't do it. He
Mhm.
said I won't do it. And the builder that I was working with, the developer I was working with, says you need to find a different accountant. And so I called around, and the accountant I use now, almost that's all he does. And so when I want to go see him or talk to him, I have to send him a check for $1,000 to talk to him for 1 hour. But it's money really well spent. The thing that's really made this a lot more attractive, I think, is the big beautiful bill, because you can write it all off in 1%, one year, 100% of it now. The other thing I think uh, that's good about it is if you do find an account that does understand it, he probably does it a lot, and you won't have much to do other than just let him know what properties you have and show him your depreciation schedule currently. So Neil will tell you if it's complicated, I can't do it. So I mean, I'm seriously, Forrest Gump would be my smarter brother. So it's not like you have to understand a lot about this. You just have to understand as a strategy. If you find an accountant that can do it for you, then really the story is, the question I ask, are you paying any more in tax than you currently would like to? And almost everybody says yes. And I said, would you like to look at a strategy that may help you with that? And almost everybody says yes. So the sale is pretty simple, really. And the nice thing is they come back year after year and buy. I have some clients that I've sold tens of millions of dollars worth of real estate to, that use this strategy.
Question.
Go ahead, Tess.
Okay. So if I understood, sorry, I mean, I'm trying to understand what you're saying about cost segregation. Isn't it true that you can use this every year when you have a rental property, right? What is the maximum amount of depreciation that you can use? That's my first question. My second question, if I understand, because I'm calling some investors also, some of them do not want to sell because when they sell, okay, they're gonna have to give back that amount of depreciation. How do you overcome that?
That's a great question. First question is how much you get to depreciate. The answer is I have no idea.
Mm,
I leave that up to the accountants. That's not anything I understand, and I leave that up to them, and they tell them because I don't know how to figure that out. The second question is, and I was doing what you were doing, Tess, is I was calling a lot of for rent by owners. I
right.
was talking to a lot of investors, and I would get someone that says, I would sell, but I don't want to pay the capital gains. And in our market, if I look at someone's property right now and I say they have $1 million worth of equity or whatever in the property, most of them think they have a certain income or a certain cash flow, but when they look at their actual expenses, it's much less than what they think it is. So, here in Utah, if you have a property, it's a rental, you're probably making somewhere between 3 and 4% on your equity per year. And
Mhm.
I don't want to confuse this up at all, but I was confused because I thought, what could I do? I could do so much more business if I could if I could find an answer to this. We would sell, but we don't want to pay the taxes. So I found what they call, and I hate to get into this because it's going to be one more thing, but it's called a TIC, a tenant in common property.
Mhm.
And I can get the equity from their property. I can do a 1031 into a tenant in common property. And instead of the 3.5 or 4% they're getting, I can guarantee them a 6% return on their money. And they just simply get a check in the mail every month. And they don't pay any tax at all on that exchange.
Okay, if you are selling a property and this is a rental, you're doing a 1031 exchange. They don't want to sell because they have to get back that depreciation. From my understanding, the only way that they can get away with this is to buy another property. Let's say they have a duplex, you do a 1031 exchange, now grow into a fourplex. Now, the whatever they gain, it goes back to the other property, which means they're not really going to pay capital gains. However, the cost segregation, the depreciation is what my question. Where is that going then?
It's the same as the regular depreciation. It goes on to the and goes and transfers to the other property. But most of my people test when they say to me, well, we would sell, but we just don't want to own any more rental properties.
Yeah.
I say, okay, well, put it in a tenant in common property because they're buying real estate in a tenant in common property, and they're doing a 1031, and they're not paying any tax, zero tax, and
But they're getting an income.
well, they're getting almost a 50% increase in their income.
Right. Well, they're
And-
getting, even if they got the same, if you don't have to pay the tax, it's a big win.
Right. No, it's huge. Yeah.
Right. So
Okay.
Tess,
Yeah.
tenants in common is another legal vehicle,
Uh-huh.
and you trade it into these multi-million dollar and they manage the building for you, et cetera, et cetera. Look, everybody, there's no guarantees on this stuff. Things are falling apart in different areas. Things are growing in different areas. You know, get your lawyers involved. But this is a giant program on how to defer things, especially older. How old was your dad at the time, John?
Well, when he started, Neil, I mean, because he used to complain every year about paying taxes, and I said, Dad, we should do cost segregation. He says, "Nah, I'm not going to do it. I don't want to get involved." And he was probably 79 or so when he finally decided, okay, let's go talk to your guy because I'd been doing it, and it wiped out several hundred thousand for him that year and every year after because he had a lot of properties that he hadn't done it with. So if they're older people and they haven't done it, and they're not fully depreciated out, it's the tax bill goes completely away. It's an easy sell.
Where do you learn more of this?
I'm so old that eventually you just
No, you're not.
because you're old. Yeah. You can get online and read about it. I actually spent some time with my accountant and asked him a bunch of questions so that I sounded intelligent. Neil and I talk all the time about we need to be a resource for our people that they can't find
Right.
anywhere else. And this, you believe me, if you do understand this, you will be a resource that nobody else understands. They won't be able to go anywhere else and find it. You will be so valuable, and they have no problem with you receiving the commission, and the commissions are big,
Yeah.
you know.
Do you know, does this cross state lines? Do you have property here? You have property in Texas and Arizona and stuff like that?
Yeah, it's a federal law. So I have properties in Ohio. I'm right now currently building 20 duplexes in Ohio. And yes, it does cross state lines because it is a federal. So, one of the first questions I always ask is your goal growth or cash flow? Because if it's growth, they would want to invest in Utah. If it's cash flow, they'd want to invest somewhere else. So basically, when I talk to an investor, is your number one goal growth, cash flow, or tax savings? And I ask that question to them, and it makes the conversation divide into something that's pretty easy for me to talk to them about.
Good job. Thanks, John. Kathy, you had a question?
Oh, hi. Besides tenants in common, there's also something called a DST, Delaware Statutory Trust, and it's something that morphed out of tenants in common because that got a little messy. At any rate, it's a way for people to maybe older people who are tired of dealing with rentals to 1031 into, like you said, like a multi-million-dollar program where many people go into it. But regarding this cost segregation, normally you have 27 and a half years to depreciate. But if you depreciate 100% or even a large chunk the first year, it seems like it won't be long till you run out of your depreciation and all this benefit is used up.
That's why you have to keep buying property.
Well, you keep buying, but I want to understand what you're depreciating. So you're not depreciating the actual building itself. Okay, it's the assets it would normally you depreciate over 5 or 10 or 15 years. You're depreciating them. So even though you depreciated those assets, The building itself is still on the 27.5 year schedule. So you're still going to write that off. But this accelerates a lot of depreciation. You can save a person that has a good strategy with this, and we've talked about this, but they can save hundreds of thousands of dollars in tax. For real estate agents, it's insane that we don't use it. I mean, if we do have properties, we should be using it. But yes, your comment was right. If you depreciated the whole building in 1 year, the good news about cost segregation is that if you don't need all the depreciation in 1 year, it carries over to the next year.
Mm-hmm. And let's say you um, have a $500,000 building and you've fully depreciated it. So you don't really want to hang on to it any longer because you're losing that tax benefit. So you buy $1 million building and you put your $500,000 down, but now you've used up your 500,000 in depreciation, right? So you only have 500 to depreciate.
You wouldn't do a 50% deal like that. You'd take 500,000 and buy a $5 million building.
Well, yeah, depending on if you want cash flow or growth, right?
Yeah.
True.
Yeah, so that's a good question that I ask all if my investors are a little older, they're looking for cash flow generally. If
Hmm.
they're younger, if they're 30 or 40, they'll tell me I want cash flow, but after I talk to them, they'll find out, no, I really don't want cash flow, I want growth. So
Hmm.
that's where we become the expert, right? They go, oh yeah, no, I don't want any more. I'm looking down the road 15, 20 years from now. So a 30 or 40-year-old investor is different than say, a 65 or 70-year-old investor.
Hmm.
Good question, Kathy. John, thank you. Is there anyone else that has some questions on this?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Rosa.
Just so to kind of understand this, so in order to even mention it to any investors, we need to know more about it. Obviously, us.
I would study it a little bit. Like I said, you don't hear me really saying much other than you need 750 hours if you're not a licensed agent to manage the property, unless you buy short-term rental. And if you buy a short-term rental, you don't need those hours. And you don't need to be licensed. So a lot of people that are buying short-term rentals are using it.
Mhm.
And they don't have to be licensed or have those 750 hours. But if you are an investor or if you are in real estate, you probably already qualify, and you may not want to do. I don't own any short-term rentals because they seem like a hassle to me, and I just don't own them. But there's a lot of people that buy them and like them, so that's still just one more strategy. But I don't get into the like Neil said, I don't get into the details at all. I just say there's a way we can save some money. We want you to talk to this accountant. We talk to a lot of accountants before we find someone that will say, "Yeah, I think that's something I want to do." They're happy to put their people together because it's helping them make a lot more money.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
I have a real quick question, please. What if I find an investor who wants to uh, have an investment in internationally?
Oh yeah, you know what, I wish I could tell you about that. That's over my head. Like I said, I'm pretty simple. Most of my people, well, all of my people are just buying inside the United States, so I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Good question.
Great
Good
question.
stuff. Yeah. Anything else? So, John, if you work in your office as a real estate agent, you're starting out pretty new. Do you have to role play every day to stay there?
Well, you should. Yes. I mean, if you're not, here's the thing. Let's say, like I'm going to use Michael because he's the one that's doing this cost segregation. So I role played with him a lot, not just in the mornings, but he'd come in and I'd role play with him in the afternoon because we wanted to find out how should we talk to these investors, how should we talk to these accountants. The one thing that's very clear if you're here, we get paid to communicate value, and that's how we get paid. So if we're not willing to work on that, we're probably not going to get paid very well. And I wish everybody would work on it harder, but the majority of my agents do record themselves every day on their calls, and they do critique a call every day. and all the ones that I coach send me a recording once a week for me and them to listen to together.
And if they don't do that, are they allowed to stay very long?
Depends on how much money they're making.
Ha, good point. Good point. What if they're not making a lot yet?
And no, they won't be there very long.
Okay. So if Mike Ferry ever had a real estate company, it would look just like that company. Good for you, John.
Well, Neil, you and I've talked about this a lot. I've learned a lot from you, and we've been friends for a long time. And any agent that is fortunate enough to work with you, if they've been in other real estate companies, they know how fortunate they are to have you, because you're like one in a billion, right? And so, hopefully they'll learn from you because you're a wealth of information. Every Wednesday morning when we talk, I learn something from you.
Oh, that's very nice. Thank you. And I from you.
Well, that's why we're friends, Neil.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I still don't understand this, John, and I got to make a lot of phone calls
Yeah.
and talk to a lot of people. Not that I don't trust you, but trust and verify, right?
Well, I would talk to someone else, Neil, because I don't know much about it myself, other than I can make a lot of money doing it. And the two places I do really well with in investors is cost segregation and ticks. And on the ticks, I don't put any of my people in anything other than all cash. And everything they buy has a 10-year corporate guarantee, meaning that no matter what happens, they will be paid for 10 years. So there's very, very little risk on the ticks, but it just kind of depends on what my investor is looking for.
Got it. Good.
I have a
Great.
question.
Go ahead, Tess.
What is the typical question or the objection that a client normally asks you when you talk about this?
That's a great question. Almost every one of them says, "Is this legal?"
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. They'll say, "Are you sure this is legal?" I say, "Go talk to your accountant." I'm not an accountant. We help a lot of people with this every year. It's a big income producer for our company and for the agents that use it. Most of the agents won't take the time to understand it or learn it, so they stay doing what they're doing. But those that do understand it and learn it, I found my own business was much easier doing investors. Not that I don't do the other stuff because I still do a little bit, but the investors are so easy. So that test, the question they ask me is, "Are you sure this is legal?"
Mhm.
And they say that to me all the time. And I say, "Well, I want you to talk to your accountant. I'm not an accountant."
Got it. Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Hi, this is Kathy again. You talked about setting up an LLC for each individual property, but I believe that's unrelated to cost segregation. That's only if you want to separate each property so that a person could sue you and only get the maximum value of that individual property.
That's a great question. So I don't suggest that all of your properties are set up in each individual one LLC. We put them inside of companies under LLCs. So you have LLCs, and then you have an umbrella that covers the LLC. So like in my own investment properties, I'll have 4 or 5 properties in one company. It does a couple things. One is it eliminates the number of tax returns I have to do. But it gives me added protection. And again, I want to say I don't. This isn't my line, my area of expertise. I pay attorneys to set this all up for me. There's a lot of things I've learned when my dad was getting ready to pass away because he had a fairly large estate, and we were trying to eliminate. And I imagine a lot of you know that when you die after 13 or 14 million dollars, you're taxed at 40% on the balance of your estate. And I spent a lot of time with attorneys and a lot of money to save millions and millions of dollars in death tax. So LLCs and companies and umbrellas that cover those and protect those, I wouldn't be a resource for you. You're right. You don't have to do an LLC on each one. We do them. We suggest that they do them. Our accountant suggests they do them for the properties that they have, and that they put them under different strategies, under different umbrellas to protect them against lawsuits.
I
Mhm.
have a question. Have you ever done land trusts on any of the properties?
No, I haven't. I haven't done any of that.
Okay.
Neil, you're muted, Neil. I don't know if you're talking to me or not.
No, what I had said, I was talking with Karen,
Oh.
and just disregard everything I just said. No, I'm kidding.
I didn't hear it.
I know. I know. There's many ways to do different things and many things that people are comfortable with. So the right now will be we are in a period of time where the baby boomers are retiring and passing away. Those baby boomers, my parents, well, I guess they were part of the great generation. So I guess I'm the baby boomer.
Yes,
John, I'm the baby boomer.
me too, Neil.
Yes. Yeah.
Right now, we are in the greatest transfer of wealth that's ever been seen on planet Earth in the history of the world. Okay? That's what's going on right now. And a lot of you are involved with probate and doing different things in there, and there's some different laws and strategies that you've got to come up with there. So get some information, pay professionals to give you the information, check and double check. Okay? One of the situations I've run into that my wife and I for our tax planning is we every 4 or 5 years we check with the attorneys to double check what we did 4 or 5 years ago was the right thing to do. What we found is that the brilliant idea that we came up with and how to transfer money and do different things and give things to children and grandchildren and stuff, we look at it 5 years later and boy, were we wrong. I don't know if you've run into that, John, but boy, you think you're so smart, and then all of a sudden, you got money going to the wrong people at the wrong time. So
Yeah.
and then you have to rewrite a bunch of stuff. So this is a law that's been around for a long, long time.
Mhm.
They just jumped it up from 60% to almost 100%. That's what really makes this interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
And you want to be a resource to your people. Doesn't mean you have to get behind it and push it like crazy, but be a resource, be knowledgeable, be able to talk about it. Another subject, real quick, I'm going to take some of John's thunder here. John, excuse me, where is he? Dave Bauman. I was listening to him call the other day, John, and I don't know if we talked about this or not. Dave had a number of his clients that had refinanced their property over the last 5 or 8 years. And all of these people, or most of them, had trusts. And Dave was calling them all because he did a little bit of research and found most people that refinanced their property over the last 5 to 6 years did not put the property back in the trust.
Right.
Right?
Yep.
Okay. All of you have clients just like that. All right. And it's not that you can't do it even after people pass away. There are some things, but it costs $5, $6, $7, $8, $10,000 to get an attorney to do that. Be a resource, have a conversation with them, let them know what's going on. Okay. Rather than calling them up and saying, when do you plan on selling? You can talk to them and say, I noticed, I looked into your property, and when you guys refinance your property, you didn't put, or by my information, didn't notice that you put your property back into the trust. Did you know that? No, I had no idea. Well, it costs money to fix that if you pass away, before. Do you think your clients would like to know that? Probably at the same level that they'd like to know about what John's talking about here, cost segregation. We are a resource. Be that resource. Okay, last questions. Anyone for John Har? Any other questions? He's got to go back and crack the whip on his people.
Well, you said to ask an expert, but who do we ask, or what type of person are we looking for? Because I know we're in different areas.
That's a great question.
Locations.
No, it's a really great question. Thank you. Kathy, the thing was I called several accountants before I found one that said this is what we do. And most of the accountants said, well, we understand it, but we don't really do it, or we're not really crazy about it, we're not really sure how to do it, or we can't do the study, or there were a lot of things. But the one I found, and it took a little bit of research, but I found one, and he says we've been doing these for 20 years, 25 years, and he says it's just gotten better and better and better, and this new law that was passed has just made it even better. And so, I would call and talk to some people until you feel comfortable with one. And I would ask them some questions. How I started was I was told by, like I mentioned, I was told by someone, you ought to look into this. And so then I started doing some research, and this will surprise Neil. I actually got online and started reading about it.
I
And
didn't know you could turn on a computer.
no, I had Elisa do it. You know that. And then I wrote down some questions, and then I started calling accountants. And the one that I used is not convenient. Is an hour away from my house and cost me $1,000. I probably drive past 1,000 accountants to get to him, but I feel very comfortable with him.
Got it. Got it. Kathy, does that help?
Yeah, somewhat. This year I was looking for someone to help me, and I no, it was like nobody wanted to touch this like a hot potato.
Right.
This subject?
Yeah, well, I did learn about cost segregation and talk to different people about which is the best investment, and uh if they were the salesman, whatever they had was the best investment, and people who were not the salesman just gave me a yes or no answer. Um, I just couldn't get to an expert that could help me. So, like you guys said, I had to make a stab in the dark and, hold my breath, shut my eyes, and hope for the best.
Well, I don't recommend you necessarily do that, but I think a lot of us are pretty good on the telephones where we can make enough dials to do this. It's not going to be, hopefully it is 3 or 4 phone calls and you find that guy or that gal. But where are you located, Kathy?
Well, I'm in Valencia.
So personally, I would call Century City. Those guys don't pay the rent in Century City in those tall buildings because they don't know stuff. I would go to Century City, Beverly Hills in a heartbeat. You might not find somebody in Valencia. I don't know. Okay. But if I knew this subject, and I'd want to be where the money is, not necessarily out in the boondocks. So John, is your guy that is he downtown Salt Lake?
No, he's in Bountiful, and now which is north of Salt Lake, a few miles.
Well, he's in Bountiful, of course, where I would be in Bountiful.
Yeah. And he's also now located down in St. George, where I think he has a second home or whatever. But I most of the time I'm talking to one of his assistants, and if I want to talk to him, I just write a check. So I would say don't if they're really good, you're probably going to write a check. They're probably not going to answer their own phone. And this guy, when I first met with him, he was behind two locked doors that only assistants had keys to. So you weren't going to get in and talk to him. You weren't going to walk in off the street and talk to him. They didn't. Where the name on the door was. He wasn't even in that office. He was down the hall about 100 feet in a behind a door that had no name or no nothing on it. So He spends his day doing this. That's all he does.
Wow. Great stuff. All right, everybody, let's give John a big hand. Unmute yourselves. Good job, buddy. Woo! All right, all right, all right.
Thank you.
Love it.
you.
Thank you, John.
You're welcome, Neil. Good luck.
I appreciate it. All right. I know where John's at, so if you want to refer any business out there, let me know, and I'll make sure that you get that address or that zip code. All right, everybody. John, thank you. And let's go. Who's up next? Frank? Frank, you're next.
Neil, is John the one that has the women's shelter?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he started a not-for-profit organization that is women, I don't want to say battered women, but women who are single or were married but divorced right now, have children, don't have a lot of money, don't have a lot of don't understand money, they didn't. And he set up an organization with family money, and then one of his assets, one of the properties his dad bought years ago, was a 640-acre ranch up on a mountain that he has these events at, and helps battered women. I don't think is right. I have to get the exact name, but they give back. They give a lot of money away.
What's his last name?
Harr, Harr.
Okay, hard.
Okay, John has 25 grandchildren, 4 children and 25 grandchildren, and I was very impressed with that. His
Wow.
brother has like 65 or 70.
Neil, you're still recording.
Okay, thanks.